Okay, so we are not live on YouTube.
We're online now? Excellent. So our next speaker is one of Magdalena's academic grandchildren, Ramon Castañeda. He is a professor at the Science and Engineering Division of the University of Guanajuato. He's a level 3 member of the National System of Researchers. And he has been awarded by the Marcos Moschinsky Medal in 2014. He was a Humboldt Fellow in 2015. And he obtained the Mexican Academy of Sciences Award for Young Researchers in 2015. He performs theoretical research in condensed soft matter. So please, Ramon, thank you for being here and go on.
Thank you for the introduction, Bernardo. And also thank you for to the organizers for inviting me to talk about Magdaleno and also my personal collaboration and friendship with Magdaleno. No, honestly speaking, so I feel honored to be here. So we are celebrating Magdalena's birthday. So, but we as community, we are also celebrating the 50 years of statistical physics in Mexico. So we recently published a special issue on that direction. So it is now complete. So it was published in Frontiers in Physics. So you can take a look at this special issue. There are several Mexican contributions that come basically from Magdalena's school. Okay, so I will be very brief because as Gerhard mentioned, so I'm the academic grandchild of Magdaleno. So, but basically, let me change the slide. So you can see the change in the slide, Bernardo?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So I was very happy to be part of this celebration because you can realize that this collaboration between Mexico and Germany in terms of soft condensed matter start basically 35 years ago when Magdaleno visit Constance in the group of Professor Klein. So by the way, Professor Klein, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. So and since then it has been a very productive time. So where both groups and or countries have collaborated a lot in very interesting problems of soft condensed matter physics. Okay. So let me briefly review about my collaboration and friendship with Magdaleno. So I did my master and PhD at Simvestav in the physics department with Pepe Mendez. So Pepe Mendez was a first master student of Magdaleno, if I remember correctly. And actually, I think that he also did the both bachelor and master thesis, right? And after that, Pepe moved to Constance, and there he did the PhD in the group of Professor Klein. So when Pepe came back to Mexico it was the second time he came back to Mexico, and then he got a professor position at Simvestav. So I remember that he explained me about the idea of how to integrate the degrees of freedom of a many-body system, okay? How that integration allows you to get, for example, the effective potential between particles. And one particular effective potential is what we call the depletion potential, okay? So I think that Professor Klein mentioned about this kind of approximation, and this kind of contraction comes basically from the preliminary ideas of Magdaleno when he tried to incorporate this approximation to study the colloidal dynamics, okay? So when Pepe convinced me to do the master thesis with him, so he told me that there was a very nice and interesting meeting in San Luis Potosí called the Complex Fluid Meeting. So, and I remember that my first complex fluid meeting was in summer of 1999. There I saw Magdaleno. So that was not the time when I met him personally. But what I realized, and it was very interesting, is that that meeting was very interesting because I met people from different countries and from well-known international universities like Harvard. If I remember correctly, in that meeting, David White from Harvard was there. So, and to me it was very impressive because I did my career in a place where at that time nobody did research. Okay, it was I just had professors that their only function was to teach physics and that's it. So this was my first experience in contacting people doing real science. Okay, so there I met Magdaleno. So but when I was a master student, I heard about the famous Magdaleno, no, and also some friends of the same university. They moved to San Luis Potosí to do their master thesis. And they told me a lot of nice stories about Magdaleno, because if I remember correctly, so he was the director of the institute. So many people from Veracruz moved to San Luis Potosí, and they did the master thesis in the Physics Institute in San Luis Potosí. But if I remember correctly, a few years later, Magdaleno moved to Mexico City to the Mexican Institute of Petroleum to do his sabbatical there. But he also got some office at Simvestaff, and then I met him there personally. So, and it was in my case, as Jose Luis Arauz said yesterday, Magdaleno was key for my PhD thesis, because I remember that using this kind of approximation to account for effective potentials in colloidal systems, I remember that Pepe asked me to do a calculation, because there was a famous experiment reported by Arjun Jot, where they had a binary mixture of colloidal particles in contact of a wall, but the wall was not completely planar, okay? And this kind of geometry in the wall affected the wall particle potential, and one big colloid experiences, for example, a kind of repulsion when it is in front of a wall with a step, okay? And Pepe asked me to do some calculations in order to capture that effect using this approximation based on the original ideas from Magdaleno. And I remember that I had like 6 months working on that problem. So, and it was to me very complicated. So I was not completely confident about my work, because at that time, so the statistical physics group at Simvestaff was very young. I remember that Pedro Gonzalez was there. Mauricio Carvajal just arrived there. And Pepe also took the professor position, but I was the only PhD student in that group. So there was no any other possibility to discuss about what I was doing. So Magdaleno was there. So if I remember correctly, after Magdaleno working at the INP, he used to spend more hours working even at night at the physics department in Simvestaff. So I decided to discuss with him what I was doing during my PhD. Then I discussed with him. So he asked some questions, and in the end he said, you are doing the right calculations, so go ahead. It seems that everything is okay. So it was to me the first scientific experience with Magdaleno, and it was very successful, because in the end I did correctly the calculations. I was able to reproduce the experimental data. So thank you, Magdaleno, because basically you gave me that confidence that I was doing my calculations correctly. So Pepe, of course, was happy that I was able to complete this task, and it was important for my PhD thesis. Okay, so thank you very much for that. So, and also as Professor Klein said, so I got an offer from Hans-Henny von Grunberg when he was also member of Professor Klein's group to spend my postdoc there. So, and it was a very interesting postdoc because Henny told me that the idea was to travel and also to spend some time in conference, to meet people, to meet a lot of researchers that were doing very interesting science. And in every conference, it was very interesting because when I said that I was from Mexico, there was always a question that if I was member of Magdaleno's group. So it seems that everybody in the European soft matter community knew very well to Magdaleno, and they immediately established that link with between Magdaleno and me. But I used to say that I was the academic grandchild. Okay, that I didn't, that unfortunately didn't work directly with Magdaleno, but I was his academic grandchild. Okay. And also there was a very interesting story because when I got the offer to come back to Mexico and I flew from Germany to Mexico, my first stop was in Mexico City. And I remember that when I arrived to the airport and then I tried to take my next flight to Veracruz because the idea was to spend a few days with the family there. So in the airport, the first guy, the first known guy I met in the airport was again Magdaleno, no? And by the way, Magdaleno gave me a recommendation letter to fill the position in the Physics Institute of the University of Guanajuato. So it was also very interesting to see Magdaleno in Mexico after spending a couple of years in Germany. And basically, since my incorporation at the former Physics Institute in the University of Guanajuato, I have to say that Magdaleno was my kind of mentor in the scientific community, because I remember when I was also a PhD student and I met Magdaleno and I knew about colloidal dynamics. I was very interested in the colloidal dynamics. In fact, I mentioned to Pepe that why he didn't say anything about colloidal dynamics, because I found it much more interesting, no? And since then, I think that I established not a proper collaboration with Magdaleno, but actually we were discussing a lot of scientific ideas, but also what the soft matter community in Mexico should be, okay? And typically we meet at national and international conferences. I also remember that Magdaleno was in the summer during my first sabbatical in the group of Norm Wagner in Delaware. So, and then I was discussing with Norm to invite Magdaleno to give a talk in Delaware. So Magdaleno accepted, no? And also he was giving a nice talk there about gelation and colloidal dynamics. And we tried to establish our first collaboration in that direction. Also, some of my graduate students, they have spent some time in the group of Magdaleno. Okay. In particular, so 10 years ago, yes, actually 10 years ago, so we created the Mexican Soft Condensed Matter Network, and it's clear that Magdaleno was or is an essential part of this community. Okay, and in 2015, or yes, at the beginning of 2015, there was a special program in my university, and the idea was to bring scientists of a very high profile, no, and to share some of their knowledge, experience, and the impact in order to put my university, let's say, in the first places in the national ranking as a kind of scientific university. Then I remember that I was talking with the rector of my university, and I said that I knew a guy, and this guy was one of the most important physicists in Mexico, and it was very convenient to have him in the university. And this guy was Magdaleno. Then I remember that I sent him an email and asked him to attend a phone call. So he called me back, and then we discussed about the idea to have Magdaleno with us during 1 year. And it was very interesting because it was basically the year when Marco Laurati came also to the university. Marco Heinen from Germany was also faculty member in the same group where I work. And it was a very nice time. So unfortunately, I moved to the United States to spend my second sabbatical, but I think that at least we had a kind of overlap of 3 or 4 months, and it was very interesting to have Magdaleno in the university, and I think that both Marcos really had a nice time with Magdaleno in the university. And this has been, in summary, my kind of collaboration and friendship with Magdaleno. But let me share some pictures that in my view are very important. So Magdaleno is definitely a scientific role model. So Magdaleno is always open to support young students, also young researchers. So he's always open to have a good meal, also good beers that you can see in the pictures, and good wine. So to have a nice conversation with Magdaleno, and it's always very nice to have Magdaleno close and have the possibility to talk to him. Okay, but it is not only the beer or the wine, but also we have had a lot of academic meetings. Very interesting. Magdaleno has invited me to, for example, to give some lectures in this kind of schools to teach the young students how to do some calculations, how to do some computer simulations, but also we have established this kind of national laboratory on matter out of equilibrium. No, for example, here you can see a picture where you see Thomas Feynman. Not, if I remember correctly, that school took place in San Luis Potosí 3 years ago. Also Magdaleno has been member of the PhD committees of my students. So, and Magdaleno is a very, as many people have mentioned, that Magdaleno is quite active in the community, and he has been very supportive of all the ideas and work we have been working with. Okay, so but what is important is what we have studied and investigated. So basically, our scientific collaboration starts with the dynamically arrested states. But I should mention that one important guy in this story, of course, is this idea about caging that Stefan showed yesterday. But what was very important is when you apply the Goris operator. So if you apply Goris operator, then the magic starts, okay? So of course, Magdaleno always says, okay, wait, because maybe we did that. There is a very nice story about one of the papers we published quite recently in collaboration with Stefan, with Marco and Thomas. So because I remember that Luis and I went to Magdaleno's office with we were very happy because we realized that there were some experiments from Stefan's group, and also we did some computer simulations and also compared with Magdaleno's approach to understand the dynamical arrest in binary mixtures of hard spheres. And I remember that the first response of Magdaleno was, but we already did that 10 years ago. And then Luis and I looked each other, and I remember that basically we said, okay, so if Magdaleno said that everything is done in this direction. So maybe we should stop here. But Luis is also very enthusiastic. So, and he said, no, we have to continue in this direction. So we continue in the direction, and you can see the number of people involved in this collaboration. But I think that is one of the most interesting scientific works I've been involved during the last few years. So thank you very much. So you can see here, I was part also of this story related with the extension of the Langevin approach to atomic liquids, and it is a very interesting theoretical approximation. And also quite recently, together with Luis, so we studied the dynamic arrest in this kind of dipolar hard sphere systems. So in my opinion, so I learned a lot. So I'm learning a lot from these two guys, from Magdaleno, being quite enthusiastic. So, and also let me share with you the following story. 2 years ago, I spent my last summer as part of my Humboldt fellowship in the group of Stefan. And I remember that Norm Wagner contacted me because he said that he was visiting Jülich to visit Jan and Gerhard to complete part of his second book on rheology. So he said, why not you come here to Jülich and we can have dinner in Jülich, no? So when I went to Jülich, so Gerhard kindly invited us to have dinner at his home. And we realized that all the guys you see in the picture, so we spent some time in the group of Professor Klein. And in particular, my connection with that group was through Magdaleno Medina. So, and I mentioned that Magdaleno was going to be 70 years old soon. So, and we discussed at that time that it would be very convenient to organize a special issue in his honor. So unfortunately, there is a pandemic. So the pandemic stopped many of the academic activities we had in mind. But I think that it would be very important to retake this idea and to have this special issue in honor of Magdaleno. Okay, so at least I think that at least Jan and Gerhard are here, so we can continue with this idea in the next weeks. Okay, so and finally, I would like to conclude. I didn't want to discuss in detail about the science because we have heard a lot of nice scientific contributions from the other guys. I just wanted to share what was my personal collaboration with Magdaleno. No, I'm his academic grandchild, so I think that guys like Gerhard, Jan, Stefan, they have the authority to explain and discuss in more detail all these scientific contributions. But in my view, personally speaking, so I would like to say thank you, Magdaleno, and I think that I'm talking for let's say a generation that is grateful, that is also or has been the opportunity to learn from you, from your ideas, from your personal view of doing things. And thank you very much. So it has been very nice to meeting you.
Thank you, Ramon. That's completely underserved, but anyway, I thank you sincerely. Thank you.
No, thank you, Magdaleno. So I finished, Bernardo.
Okay, thank you, Ramon, for all this talk about your relation with Magdaleno. Is there any question, any comment, or anyone wants to go further on this?
So I will stop sharing my presentation.
Okay. Eric, is there anything you need to let us know?
No. As for the presentation, I'm not sure. Maybe it's better if we finish with some final remarks about this event. There is a one comment on YouTube. I want to say thanks to Magdaleno, that is saying Jorge Puebla from Japan, actually.
Magdaleno, do you want to say anything to close this event?
Of course, I have many things that I would like to say, and I will not. You know that if I start talking, then I cannot stop. So I will try to refrain from naming each one of you guys, but probably I will not be able to. First of all, Ramon, thank you very much. You know that I have enjoyed your friendship and collaboration. I mean, tremendously. And what I would say, a few days ago, I had to prepare a talk for my physics institute, and I had to sort of recapitulate because I wanted to explain to my colleagues that what we have done with respect to this non-equilibrium stuff is relevant. And so I had to put up pieces, and in the process, I actually went through the whole process. And one of the things that I was really thrilled was to realize how fortunate I had been ever since, let's say, all the people that I met, incredibly wonderful people at all of the stages in my scientific career and in life. But I only reviewed in that occasion the people who had constructed the theory, and that started with Jose Luis Arauz Lara, the first PhD student. I couldn't name all the master's students who also contribute. What I could see when reviewing those theses, which were by now almost 20, because Benigno Cepeda Lopez is about to finish, and it's clear which it's a layer in which each of these guys put a really essential step, and that was not planned. That simply happened, and in all of these cases, students. I really thank all these guys that were brave enough to trust me in being their advisors, and that's one thing. And some of them, of course, participated here or were having here, and you should know that I deep in my heart, I have a tremendous gratitude for that. And the same thing applies to all my colleagues, both in the Simbestab, where I was a professor in Simbestab, and then in the physics department. And those institutions, Simbestab, the ones who went through that place, know that that was a little paradise for research in years that were, otherwise not very, were not the best years in the decade of the 80s. But at least the Simbestab was like a refuge, so to say. And so I have enormous gratitude to the institutions, the Simbestab on one hand, the Universidad Autónoma San Luis Potosí and the Physics Institute. In those places, of course, is the institution, but in the short range, it is the colleagues. And in both cases, I mean, I just cannot believe, in both cases, I think I was in the best places in Mexico, at least. And with respect to institutions, it's not only these two ones where I was formerly a professor, but also where my colleagues and collaborators were former students, like Universidad Sonora, Universidad de Guanajuato. Ramon just mentioned that I spent a year in Guanajuato, and that was also a wonderful occasion to share with great colleagues. And it's beyond the scientific collaboration, it's also the human side. Our communities, the soft matter community and the statistical physics community in Mexico are really top-class communities. They are probably not so visible with respect to, let's say, not only it is visible, but not as it will be now with these new generations of young people like Ramon, I shouldn't name it actually, but I'm sure the time that comes will be of a considerable visibility of this community. But in one thing that was well developed since the beginning was with respect to the sense of community, with the sense of the human relation between people who love science and also respect people, respect science, and respect everything. That has been wonderful along this time. And who shaped those communities? For example, in the case of the statistical physics community, you cannot but remember people like Leopoldo Garcia Colín, who unfortunately is gone already, Fernando del Río, el doctor Piña, Eliezer Brown, and so on, a number of people. And also in the soft condensed matter community, you saw how this community was founded by people who, how to say, committed themselves to really risky endeavors, like Jose Luis Arauz Lara, Rolando Castillo, becoming from theoreticians who could have done a very successful career as theoreticians and decided to move from theory to experiment, and in the case of Arauz Lara, to biophysics, not only physics. So anyway, I just cannot understand how fortunate I was to be, let's say, to meet all these people. And this is already 40 years since I came back to Mexico. So there are so many people, and I could say a lot about how much I enjoyed not only the science, but also the beers and I mean, the stories that we cannot tell in public, according to Jan Dont. He cannot go into details because, but I mean, the human side is as important as the scientific side. And this has been all this community, and this event, of course, I mean, is the 70th birthday, but to me, it's really an opportunity to meet again all these friends that mean so much to me. So anyway, all of this just to say thank you, guys. Thank you. First of all, the organizers, starting by the director of the Physics Institute, who sparked this. Now I understand. I never realized, and that he asked Cristina Cáceres, thank you very much. All the effort that you did, that's amazing. And the same, the three organizers, Leti, who hasn't talked about, but who is a little bit of a soul of many things. And Eric, I really thank you. I mean, you are gone from the Physics Institute, but not really. It is great that you stay around. And I deeply thank you for organizing this, and also to Gori, Luis Elizondo. I mean, I must declare that I didn't intend. that was too cruel. This not according to Gori. You saw that meme that Ramon food, and that was what Luis was telling me before. I'm fed up. Everybody puts that meme. How do you call it? A picture of mine, and then a legend that Marco Chavez, who is another guy who, Jesus, I have the fondest memories of him. He did that meme 10 years ago, and still. So anyway, I thank you three guys, Gori, Eric, and Leti, for organizing all this, for putting us together, and that I really thank you. And of course, my colleagues in the Physics Institute, and my colleagues who came to the meeting, and others that couldn't or were not around. And as I say, students, former, my children, academic children, grandchildren, and so on. It was great to see all of you. I can see that Marco, you're still there. You should be sleeping, I guess, or dining. Thank you. Gerhard, of course, all of you from Europe that are not having your dinner or going to sleep, thank you, not only for staying so late, but for what your talks were wonderful. Stefan as well, and all of you who participated, my deepest gratitude to all of you. And I think that just tell you that you made not only my day, my year, whatever. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Magdaleno. And I just want to read some of the comments in YouTube. There are several comments from Jorge Puebla saying, I want to say thanks to Magdaleno from Japan. I also would like to say that I wanted to share more time with Magdaleno. Unfortunately, he's far away. And he believes that it's unfortunate that the statistical community in Mexico is not as visible as it should be. He would like to have this condensed matter physics with statistical physics, and mentioned that Magdaleno is a pillar and guru. And Jose Nieto Navarro says, felicidades, Magdaleno. And Alexis Torres, Magdaleno, thank you very much for the great work you have done in Mexico for the condensed matter community. Personally, I find great inspiration in your work and in the dedication you always show. Oh,
thank you. As I say, completely underserved, but anyway, I find out great. Let me also mention, of course, because one thing that one's family is like part of oneself, like the hand. You don't thank your hand for anything, but I must also thank, of course, Elvira. Most of you know her, my wife, and Sophia, my children. At least I know that Sophia is watching. So Sophie, good to see you. and Rocio is probably there. So all of them are. Were the other part that one doesn't even talk about, but who are really quite an important. I also was looking at who were connected, and I see that I cannot name them, each of you guys, but Olegario, that we had wonderful times together, and so anyway, all of you, thank you very much, and that includes my family. I'm finished.
Okay. More comments are getting here. Pedro Ramirez, happy birthday, Magdaleno. Alexis Torres, proudly great grandson. It's not only grandsons. It's not only grandchildren. It's great grandchildren now. And
so what about the?
Let me say that I'm seeing also a guy who is my compadre, who is coming to my place. Jesus Christ. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I think we can close this event. I encourage you to
Bernardo, perhaps I will just to make a final comment here.
Oh, sure, go on.
Beyond saying thanks to everyone participating here and so on, I would like to insist, because I think it is very relevant, to try to pursue not losing this kind of bonding in many topics that we want to discuss and share. I mean, we already had the experience, the very great experience to work with Stefan, for instance, with Marco, but Jan is here, Gerhard is here, with Thomas, we have already currently like a lot of things to do with Olegario also and so on. And I would just say, let's there is no better way to honor people like or Magdaleno or Professor Klein or even you guys that working and scientifically putting a lot of effort to do things. And I will insist in trying to get together at least once in a month or two or whatever, and try to push harder to work together. And perhaps, who knows, I mean, I was just thinking that it will be a very nice goal in my personal life, to getting older and then getting together with Germans and say, hey, do you remember this thing and this other thing and so on, and having a lot of work scientifically speaking. So that's just a final comment, and thank you very much, especially to Leticia, Eric, and Cristina that made this event possible for Honor Magdaleno.
And also the colleagues from Germany. So thank you very much for being here.
Any last comment from the other organizers?
Myself, I of course I forgot many great people, but I said my children, Rocío, Sofía, Héctor, but I didn't mention my wonderful in-laws. These are really great people, Ivan, Ernst, and Doina. I mean, I cannot tell, but I wanted to mention them, and that's it. And my grandchildren, my actual grandchildren, I do have some, but I mean, just wanted to mention my in-laws.
Any other of the organizers want to give a final remark?
Well, I would like to say that thank you for all the speakers that accept our invitation. You know, actually it was kind of in a rush for this event, but we wanted to do something for Magdaleno, just to be sure that these 7 years and all his contribution to science in Mexico is not lost. I'm pretty sure that won't never be lost. And thank you to all you for accepting this. And again, Magdaleno, happy birthday. Thank you so much for doing all this for us, for the community, for your friends. And thank you, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Leti, do you want to say something?
I only say thank you all of the speakers that accept our invitation. And of course, Magdaleno, it's very honored to be your student. I am so happy to share with you all your, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now I think we can give a clap to everybody. And I think we can safely